Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your inner voice. Steve Jobs. On February 24, 1955, a child was born to two unmarried university students, Swiss-German-American mother Joan Esquivel and Syrian-born father John Abdul Fateh Jandali. But the child was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, residents of Cupertino, California, now known as Silicon Valley. His father, Paul, encouraged him to experiment with electronics in their garage. This led to a lifelong interest in electronics in him, which made him the most promising leader in technology, Stephen Paul Jobs, famously known as Steve Jobs. As a boy, he was a little mischievous and brilliant. However, he didn't like traditional school education. He dropped out of Reed College in Portland, Oregon, took a job at Atari Corporation as a video game designer in early 1974, and saved some money to travel to India. After returning to the United States, Jobs met his former school friend Stephen Wozniak in 1974, who was a designer and developer at Hewlett-Packard, famously known as HP. He was one of the first entrepreneurs to dream of making personal computers for people. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne founded Apple in Jobs' family garage in 1974, for which Jobs sold his Volkswagen minibus and Wozniak his programmable calculator. In July 1976, the company's first computer, Apple I, went on sale. Its sales started to rise, simultaneously incorporating Apple in 1977. While Apple I was rocketing on sale, Apple became a well-known name in Silicon Valley. Then Jobs and Wozniak prepared to launch Apple II, working hard on it. Like Apple I, Apple II brought the next rise of success. Soon, Apple became the most perfect example of success in Silicon Valley, reaching $100 million revenue. As it said, too many cooks in the kitchen spoiled the soup. As the company began to grow, things began to change with schism. There were two groups working on the next project of Apple, Apple Lisa and Apple Macintosh. But Jobs was compelled to work for Macintosh, which the Apple Board of Management never took seriously to, and launched it in 1984. Macintosh sales were good, but not as high as the previous two projects. Jobs was at his worst that he had been facing difficulties with then CEO John Sculley, whom he hired in 1983 to manage the company that he co-founded, asking a very famous question. You want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? People say when bad luck is nearby a man, he starts making bad decisions. And the same thing happened in the Apple board, that Jobs was thrown out of the company, choosing Sculley over him. And then everyone knows that Apple faced a lot of troubles under Sculley's leadership after the leader who dreamt the vision of the company gone. Sculley never found Jobs' policies to compete with various market shareholders, especially Microsoft. The projects Sculley worked with were proved failed, for example, regardless of the vision and the value of the company. Launching more computers, producing speakers and cameras which were not the needs of the company, launching Apple Newton, etc. Sculley tried to fix the issues. However, he failed. Apple shares began to drop, and ultimately he was replaced by Michael Splender in 1993. But Splender's leadership also couldn't rediscover the success that Apple had with Jobs, and again he was replaced by Gil Amelio in 1996. In the next side, Jobs was doing his best to establish his next company, Next, that had its own trouble, trying to find the way to the market captured by other giants. He wanted to make its own operating system, Nextstep, an alternative to Windows. Steve Jobson, an American businessman and venture capitalist, summarizes Steve Jobs' time in Next. Steve Jobs was intensely passionate about his products, diffusing an infectious enthusiasm that stretched from one-on-one recruiting pitches to auditorium-scale demagoguery. It all came so naturally for him because he was in love, living a Shakespearean sonnet with tragic turns and unrequited era of exile. and ultimately the triumphant reunion. At the personal and corporate levels, it is the archetype of the hero's journey turned hyperbole. You might have heard people saying, "Do your job best, the opportunity itself follows you." Apple called him back, acquiring his company Next in 1997. It didn't take him long to replace Emilio, and finally he rebuilt the company within a short span of time. Jobs began eliminating the secondary projects which were disturbing the company's core value and refocused on strong design and the desirable software experience. We know this is the main point that every former CEOs of Apple simply failed to understand, with which now the company was born. He strategically acquired several built-in softwares, video editing tools in Apple's operating system Mac OS X to ease the process. Since 2001, Apple has reached new heights, making Jobs the most influential CEO in the history of the tech industry with its attractive gadgets, the Mac and iPod. The iPhone in 2007, the iPad in 2010, and many other products. Not only that, Apple is the very first company to reach the $1 trillion milestone. According to Nasdaq, Apple's current valuation is $1.34 trillion. Unfortunately, Jobs passed away on October 5, 2011 due to pancreatic cancer, leaving his contribution to innovative technology an inspiring story to us. Some interesting facts about Steve Jobs. Jobs was believed to be scared of buttons. Although there is no strong evidence about it, he was said to be dyslexic, means a person having the learning disability characterized by reading and writing difficulties. He dropped out of school since he didn't like education and believed that education didn't have any practical application in his life. He traveled to India to seek enlightenment and returned as Buddhist. Before co-founding Apple, Jobs worked for Atari as an employee number 40 as a technician, where he was hired only because they would have to pay less, since he had no engineering degree and any special skills at all. Jobs brought a game called Breakout from Atari, for which Atari was going to pay him $5,000 to develop it. But he said to Wozniak Atari would pay $700 for it, and if it would be halved between them, he would give the project to Wozniak, and he had to complete it in 4 days. Wozniak completed it on time, and Jobs paid Wozniak only $350 and kept the rest himself. Neither he studied programming nor he wrote a programming code. As a CEO, he withdrew only $1 a year from Apple's account as salary. Every iPhone ad displays the time 9:41 a.m., the time Jobs unveiled in 2007. When engineers showed the very first iPod prototype to Jobs for his approval, Jobs rejected it, saying to build smaller, but the engineers explained that it was simply impossible to make it any smaller. Jobs dropped the iPod into an aquarium and showed the air bubbles to prove that there was empty space and it could be made even smaller than that. Once, a secretary told Jobs that she was late for work because her car wouldn't start. Jobs threw her a set of keys of a brand new Jaguar, saying her not to be late anymore. Steve Jobs' bio is one of the most highlighted Kindle books ever. Jobs was awarded with 141 new patents since his death, and in total 458. Jobs once called Google to tell them the second yellow O wasn't quite right on Google App logo on Apple App Store. When Apple started designating employee numbers, the two co-founders of Apple, Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs, got number 1 and number 2 respectively. Jobs chose to have number 0 instead, as he wanted to be second to none, and still it came before number 1. A rare Apple I computer, built in Steve Jobs' garage in the summer of 1976, was sold at an auction in 2014 for $905,000. Jobs did not let his kids use iPads and limited their use of technology to a minimum. Jobs initially denied paternity to his daughter Lisa, which led to a legal case, and eventually he accepted her when the DNA test proved that she was his daughter. He denied that Apple Lisa was named after his daughter Lisa and later admitted it himself. Jobs was infamous for parking his Mercedes in handicapped parking spots and also used no license and car with no number plates. When Jobs and Bill were during the Cold War of theft accusing each other, Gates said, "I think we both had this rich neighbor named Xerox, and I broke into his house to steal the TV set and found out that you had already stolen it." Here, Gates meant that they both had copied the same design from Xerox, and it was worthless to quarrel about it. Jobs believed that taking LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide, a hallucinogenic drug used in psychiatric therapy, and marijuana was the profound experience he ever had in his life, which would open up his mind to see the world in a different way. He had the habit of taking them. Jobs believed that his fruitarian diet would eliminate the need of showering to save time. Hollywood actor Ashton Kutcher tried Steve's vegan and fruitarian diet while getting into the character for the movie Jobs, and ended up in the hospital because it messed up his pancreas levels. Jobs himself got him replaced from the post of CEO for treatment by Tim Cook, the current CEO of Apple. On 24th August 2011, nearly 1.5 months before he died of cancer, Bill Gates wrote his rival Jobs a letter as he was dying, which he kept by his bed. Jobs' last words were said to be, "Oh wow, oh wow, oh wow." Jobs was buried in an unmarked grave, according to his wish before he died. The reason may be that he wanted people to take his grave normally, or some hidden message was there that he never told. Some tips in 7 points from Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement speech in 2005. 1. Connect the dots. All of us have points in our lives that he mentioned as dots, and these dots build our future. We can't see them, looking forward or backward. What we did and do would be the future. We can't go backward, but can do our best at present. Our current actions determine what we be in future. So we should do our best even on a small level, which would connect to be the result of our actions in future. 2. You have to trust in something, your gut, your destiny, life, karma, whatever, because ultimately they are the things that motivates you when you are discouraged. 3. Success can be a substitute and you may have to start over once again. So always be prepared for it because no one can see the future. Here, Jobs gives his own example because Jobs himself had to deal with this situation by being removed from Apple. Then he started another company next, again from scratch. 4. You've got to find what you love because when you do something you love, you will never be tired of it, and the chances of your success boost up. 5. Remember that death is inevitable. Think of what you do when you know that you are dying today. Don't think about losing something. You are already naked, so do something as if today is the last day of your life. 6. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Do best out of what you have today. 7. Always stay hungry, stay foolish, all the time be stupid and be hungry for knowledge and feeling of doing something, and then only you can do what the rest of the world can't even think about. Let's listen to this beautiful quote of Steve Jobs. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everyone else is secondary. Think about this. Please like, share and subscribe to this channel pressing the bell icon for latest updates. And also let this channel improve through your comments. Thank you so much for your valuable time. We'll meet in the next video. Bye.